If you won't take my word for it, let's go and ask our AI overlords how we can make this game better. Hey guys, Nightfall here, and today I had a strange idea pop into my head. I offer a lot of solutions and ideas on how we can make this game better, and admittedly, some are good and some are questionable. But it seems like not everyone has the same priorities in mind, so let's defer to ChatGPT and see if I'm as crazy as some think I am. To preface this conversation, I wanted to make sure that it even knew what I was talking about. So I simply asked it, what is XDefiant? And it gave the right answer. Then just for fun, I asked it if it was a dead game, to which I should have expected this type of response, but essentially it said no because Ubisoft is still pushing support and updates for it. So obviously, AI's definition of a dead game and a gamer's definition is way off. But that's neither here nor there. All of that set up the AI for the big question: how can Ubisoft make XDefiant good? It spit out a list of 8 things that they could do to, quote, ensure its success, unquote. So let's go over those 8 things. Number 1 is to put out regular updates and content drops. And it even elaborates on what that means by saying new maps, new game modes, weapons, cosmetics, etc. And the regular updates addressing emerging issues and balancing. So are they doing this? Kinda. The content that they're pushing out is there, but it feels like it's not enough. And I'm not really referring to the maps or the game modes because I know those take a long time, not only to develop, but to test and then push out to us, but also the cosmetics. I personally don't care a whole lot about cosmetics, but it seems like the majority of others do. And the skins we have been getting, not only for weapon leveling, but for drops in the store and Twitch drops, and even battle pass skins, seem lackluster. Not to mention I have yet to see an LMG skin in the store in the 3+ months the game has been out now. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then the updates. Sure, they feel regular because this is the most amount of updates I've seen in one season in almost any game that I've ever played, but are they meaningful? Apex's new season patch notes are just as long, if not longer sometimes, than all of XDefiant's in-season patch notes, plus the season launch notes combined. So is it better that we get it in smaller chunks or just one big overall patch? That's a debatable subject for another video, but I do like that every couple of weeks we do get some kind of an update. When this happens though, the community needs to understand that not every patch is going to have the major fix that we're all waiting for. To be fair, some of these patch notes have said they fixed things that weren't actually fixed, so that sort of takes away from the overall effectiveness of it, and being that they're small to begin with doesn't really help. Number 2 is active community engagement. Listening to feedback from the players is vital, whether that be in the form of social media or forums. I never want to see an in-game survey. I think those are the most pointless thing a game can add. Apex does this, and people are just way too inclined to answer poorly if they just lost the game. Regardless if it was a fair match or not, they're straight off a loss and not the best time to ask them about their experience. But the engagement on social media, they do way more than some of the other games I've seen. They have an entire Discord where people are working on the project, are actually in there and oftentimes interact with the community. And even the executive producer of the game is active on Twitter. Heck, we just had an entire video about him yesterday on Twitter, answering people and giving us some insight into what's coming next. Number 3 here is balanced gameplay. We all know what this means. Balancing a game is, well, a balancing act. Currently, there isn't really anything I would call meta except maybe the ACR and MP7, but once those 2 weapons are changed a bit to level the playing field, the game would be in a great spot as far as balancing goes. I still maintain that this game needs hard counters to factions, even if that's themselves, but other than that, no real balancing issues exist that I can see. Maybe if you stretch it a little, Echelon being a little too underpowered now after all the nerfs. But moving on to number 4, anti-cheat measures. This is something they seemingly struggle with when it comes to just the people blatantly cheating and downloading things like aimbot, wall hacks, and stuff. Way too many clips on Twitter for my liking of that stuff, but we as a player base are the second line of defense, and reporting those players in-game and clipping them and sending them through Twitter has been a very effective way of getting these players out of the game. They may have ruined your experience once, so don't let them do it a second time or to someone else. Just report them and move on. Cheating in my eyes also encompasses smurfing, which I'm sure if you're no stranger to the channel, you already know this, but it's the same definition as cheating and the end result. You're gaining an unfair advantage over players, regardless of how short or long that time may be until your Smurf actually hits the rank that you were before. It's still happening. And the end result being you're ruining other players' experience by doing this. Only time will tell if they ever punish those doing that, but moving on to number 5, expanding player base. This is huge because some players do stop playing games for a lot of reasons, and having an ever expanding player base can help offset that. But again, this is something they struggle with, and honestly, I believe that there are 2 things that they can do that will bring in a ton of players. 1, put the game on Steam, and 2, bring private matches. That alone opens the door for countless opportunities. A larger competitive scene, more content creators. The possibilities are endless. But jumping up to number 6 is engaging features, things like seasonal events, competitive leagues, which we just talked about. Private matches would be able to bring that. And then also player progression systems. Currently we level up and that's it. We don't get anything from it. This is a big gap in content that we're missing from this game. The highest known player level recorded is 340. And they have absolutely nothing to show for it except for their level and maybe some bragging rights for people who care about that. That needs to change. Number 7 is high quality performance, which means ensuring the game runs smoothly on all platforms that it's supported on. The PlayStation 5 FPS drop issue comes to mind, and I think they handled that as quickly as they could have and did a pretty good job communicating about it. So in this area, they seem to do pretty okay for themselves. And last but certainly not least, community events and tournaments. Basically the entire competitive scene and in-game events, like my Spider-Bot Halloween idea I made a video on. Having in-game events that change maps or bring in limited time game modes is a huge W for the community and can also be profitable if you bring in cool limited time skins tied to that event. But these don't seem to be in any sort of order. So what if we ask ChatGPT to prioritize this, since we know they can't fix everything at once, and we know their team is limited in size and resources. While doing that, it spits out this order: balanced gameplay first, strong anti-cheat at 2, performance at 3, community engagement at 4, regular updates and content at 5, community events and tournaments at 6, and then 7 is last with expanding player base. In that prioritization, it's good to note that it cut out engaging features, which could realistically just be tied in with a couple of other things on this list. But very interesting, it put the player base last. But it does make sense with its reasoning, and I'll throw the whole block of text up here on screen now for those that would like to maybe pause it here, read over its reasoning, and take some time with that. But I think it's done a pretty good job at listing out what Ubisoft needs to do to save this game. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with what ChatGPT is saying or not, and why? Also make sure to follow me over on Twitter, that's at Nightfall with 3 L's. Also, I'll be live today, September 2nd at 5 p.m. Eastern time, so probably by the time most of you are watching this, I'll be live, and I may even have some more awesome news for our charity stream with StackUp that may now include a special guest. So be sure to join the live stream today for that info, and it's looking like the date is going to be set for September 14th. Specific times and more details to come on that later, but hope to see some of you in the live stream. If not, as always, I'll catch you in the next upload.